Welcome back, everybody, to Pure Victory Podcast, and welcome if you're new. This is your first time listening to us. My name is Braden. Across from me is Matt Cline, and we're happy to be with you here, journeying in what it means to have wellness sexually and breaking free from addictions like pornography and just being close to Jesus through this whole process. And today's episode, we're going to do a special one on Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day. But before we do that, you'll notice if you're watching on our video here that we're wearing the same hoodie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, let's just show that. It's
there you go. Redeemed.
so we're giving a shout out to Own It, Justin down there in Miami. We were down there in Miami at his conference called Redeemed, and man, I've never worked out so hard. That was rough. Yeah, it was a conference where we worked out, learned about God, kind of a whole holistic approach to life, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, all these areas, and it was really powerful. But the physical component, that was rough. We did some CrossFit
great
stuff. It was fun.
One of the guys kind of high up in the CrossFit world's training us. He goes, "So this is how we're going to worship the Lord today," and he goes through the workout plan. I'm like, "This is so cool," because it's actually worship and glorifying God in your body when you steward it well. So their whole perspective on that was just so cool. And we got to get our sweat on. It was great.
It was awesome. It's not something you normally think of when you're hurting and working out, that you worship God in that, but we did. And hey, it was a special time.
And then there's like 50 of us Christian dudes, and we're walking back and forth on a beach in Miami, not South Beach, but more of a hidden gem, and confessing things and talking about deep stuff and praying together and doing and carrying these plates too for our workout. And
yeah.
And then there's this kind of scandalous rap video being filmed right,
Right.
where we're walking by. It's like, oh, this is kind of like a contrast in the spiritual realm, right?
It was.
It was pretty interesting time.
It was interesting. And I was so impressed because we were on the beach. I mean, it wasn't crazy hot, 25 degrees or so for Miami. That's not super hot, but I mean,
we were naive as the Canadians.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's never cold here, right? We get there. It was at what, 7 a.m. we got there.
That's right.
Canadian guys, we leave our hoodies at home, and they're like, "Oh man, this is cold in Miami." But
they were freezing, and I mean, for us, I mean, we're Canadians. We can handle anything pretty much. Even though I think I'm becoming a wuss, but I was impressed, Matt. You kept your shirt on through the whole process being in Miami, and the reason I bring that up is, I mean, go back to another episode. I can't remember which one, but Matt just loves taking his shirt off. I have to really stop him every once in a while when we're doing the podcast from doing this, but yeah, he loves to take his shirt off. And so the reason I bring that up is because you know how you've been all calling me Big Armed Half. This is thanks to Matt. He's been really pushing this nickname for me, and I've just been on the streets, in church, in life, and people come up to me and are now calling me Big Armed Half.
Is it starting to bug you?
No, I don't mind it. Actually, if you could add Sir Big Armed Half to that title, I would much appreciate that. I don't mind it at all. I really felt sad for Matt because he's missing out on all this nickname
that's
stuff.
Nice of you.
Yeah, and so the reason I bring up the shirt thing is, so give you some context. This is a hockey background thing, maybe a Canadian thing, but we always like to say tarps off. Tarp being your shirt, okay? So sun's out, tarps off. You've heard this saying, sun's out, guns out? Well, this is our version of that. Sun's out, tarps off. And so the reason I bring this up is because I was talking to my wife, and we've been putting our heads together. What should we call Matt? What's a nickname for him? And I'm like, well, he likes to take his shirt off. I mean, that's one of these things I noticed about him. How can we bring a nickname about that? And my wife's like, why don't you just call him Tarps? Like, I love it. Tarps. So Tarps, what do you think of that nickname?
I think there's no exaggeration in your story there at all.
No.
At all. It's just,
So everybody out there, can you just help me out with this? The next time you see him, whether you know him or not, just say, hey, Tarps, what's up? Let's see if this catches on, because you've all been calling me Big Armed Half wherever I go, and I just want to see if this catches on. If it doesn't, then I'll know. We'll kill this nickname, but I'd love to see if Tarps takes off. So let's run with it. Let's go.
I have no leverage. I can't shut her down after what I've done to you over the last few years. So
no, that's right. And honestly, this is no ill will. I just feel you're missing out on so much.
You just out of consideration.
Out of consideration for you, I want you to experience this.
Nice little Valentine's Day present.
This is my Valentine's gift.
It means a lot to me.
Yeah,
that you've been thinking of me.
That's right. It's all love. Yeah. And speaking of it, we are in the love month. So February is love month, Valentine's Day, and we thought it'd be great to do an episode specifically about Valentine's Day. For those of you that are single, it's okay. Like what we want to say to you is that there's going to be some good from this, no matter where you're at, whether you're married or not. But primarily, we're viewing this through the point of relationships, and we're gonna have some fun with this because I don't know if you've noticed this, but men and women were so different. Not only that, husband and wife, you're married, you know this, you're very different from your spouse. I'm very different from my wife. And how we give love, receive love, and that can create a lot of confusion, especially during Valentine's, when we are loving in the way that we think our spouse would want to be loved. But often we miss the mark. So we want to talk about this not only to give some tips, some pointers, but just to have some laughs about this because man, over the years, Matt, like you've been sharing some stories, I have some stories of how we tried to love our wives, and man, it crashed and burned.
That's for sure. I think I'm doing the right thing, and I find out, oh man, I've been wrong.
That's right.
A special day for me. 9 years ago was the first day that I heard about my wife. I was single on Valentine's Day 2015, and put a post up on Facebook. Just I had made some dip or something for a meal by myself, and I put the empty dish of the dip on Facebook and made a joke about just having a date by myself on Valentine's Day. And this person, our friend Janelle, she commented and like, "Hey, I know who your wife is, or I know who your girlfriend is, or whatever it was." And so that was Valentine's Day, and then I met my wife shortly after that, and here we are. So 9 years ago today, special day for us. And I just, I got married, and I just took that verse seriously in Genesis 2:24. It says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife." I just hold her, right? Like anywhere, like she's doing the dishes, I'm holding her hips. I got to hold my, she's, whatever she's doing, she's with the boys, she's doing work around the house. I'm like, well, I got to hold your hips, hon. I got to come from behind you and hold you. She's told me she doesn't always appreciate it, which I didn't really realize. I'm just like, this is a biblical command, honey. I have to hold fast to you, not allowed to let go.
Yeah, no, she's more like a cat, right? Like she probably wants that touch when she wants it, and other times like, get off of me, leave me alone, stop pawing at me.
That's the only time I'll ever let someone compare her to a cat with that explanation.
Well, the reason I do that is because Kristen is identical to that. She's so much like that. So I see her and Louise in that on that point for sure.
Yeah, Louise is doing dishes or something or cooking, and I'm just like come up from behind and give her a little hug, right? Whisper in her ear. She's like, honey, I'm cooking right now. I need my space. Okay, I guess we're different. So I would walk by Louise, and I just kind of like poke her, or just touch her, and just you know, it might be any part of her body, but or like give her a little squeeze as I walk by, and nothing sexual at all, just like just for fun. But I kind of like it because I like physical touch.
Yep.
She likes physical touch too. It just has to be right. So
there's a context to it.
yeah, eventually, or exactly. But eventually, she goes, you know what? That actually doesn't do anything for me when you touch me like that. I'm like, really? Like when I walk by you and you're busy doing something and I give you a little poke, that doesn't do anything for you? She's like, not really. So then now she kind of bugs me back. She just comes and pokes me like, hey, I love you. Feeling this? I'm like, no, it's actually pretty annoying. Like poking my belly, poking my back, whatever. But it's different on my end.
Wait, is that what you're doing to her? I can see why maybe she doesn't like that. You're like literally poking her?
Yeah, like I literally poke her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it's,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's a tip. Why don't we give her a nice little back rub? I mean, that'd be nicer than poke.
So that's what she's trained me on. She's like, just put your hand on the back of like my lower back. Just like put your hand there.
Yeah.
Maybe give me a back.
Have you tried to change that? Have you gone lower? Like, are we keeping it PG here when you do that touch?
So sometimes I go lower, but then I remember like she doesn't want the sexual touch.
Yeah, right.
So I go lower, and then I'll like walk by her, but then I'll come back and I'll kind of like dust it off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And then I'll put my hand on her lower back. This is what you want, right? I'm so bad though. I make a joke. Like even when I do what she wants, I still make a joke out of it.
Yeah.
She's like, "Can you just please learn to be romantic?" It doesn't really go well for me. I need to learn how to actually put my hand on her lower back and just like have it be a nice romantic time. Mm-hmm. But I'm always like, "Oh, this is what you want, honey. See, I'm being romantic right now." It just, I have to learn.
Oh, you and me both. Man, Kristen is so similar to that with touch. Like I love to touch. Like she knows that about me, and she likes touch too. But again, there's a context to it. Yeah, like if she's doing something and I come give her a hug or a kiss, she's like, you know, I'm sure she likes it on a level, but it didn't always work out for me the way that I thought it would or envisioned in my mind. So this goes to love languages, right? Like if you haven't read that book, The 5 Love Languages, we highly recommend it because there's ways that we really love to, there you go, love to be loved. And so that would be a resource that we're speaking into here. So
And then we give love in that way, and we're
yeah,
not always on the same page with
no,
that, right?
no. And like Kristen likes to touch me back, but it's so different. Like, she has to work really hard at this because in her family, like I don't know if you know what this means, but she's kind of the glue in her family in the sense that a lot of people in her family come to her, like her siblings all kind of come to her, and they might disagree with that, but hey, let's just be real, she's the glue. But anyway, she was pawed at a lot by her family, right? So her brothers, and to a lesser degree her sister. I mean, they have a closer relationship than the sisters, but so she was the one that always was being touched. She's like, get out of here, leave me alone, right? And then coming into marriage, that's kind of the same thing. So sometimes I feel like I'm pawing at her a little bit, but she still likes touch. It's just different. So I'll give you an example of the way she touches me. We'll both be falling asleep. It's a nice warm moment, you know, under the blankets in our cold tundra of Canada. But it's warm and underneath our blankets, and I'm starting to doze off, fall asleep. You know those moments. That's great. And all of a sudden, like, and I'll just give you some understanding. I go to sleep, like I don't have any pants on or anything. Like I have underwear, but like my legs are bare. All of a sudden, out of the blue, it's like I've been shot with a needle in my leg, and it's the coldest thing ever. It's like icicles that
I
are
knew
being
it.
jammed into my leg, and it's her feet. She's putting her feet up into my legs to warm them up, and I'm awake. Like you think coffee gets you up? No, there's nothing like this. And that's how she wants to be loved. She's like, you love me at my best, you got to love me at my worst. I'm like, oh, those stupid marriage vows.
Yeah.
So here I am having to warm her feet up on my legs, and it's painful. It's like, you know, we did that cold plunge in Miami.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that.
Oh no.
It's
Where you
so
can't
cool.
breathe for a minute.
Yeah, no, I'd take that. And but I gotta love my wife through that. This is the kind of touch that she wants, is to be loved in that moment. And
you get to
I
love
get
your
to
wife.
do it. And she reminds me all the time. You would miss this if it was gone. And yeah, that's true. It's just in the moment though, I'm like, it's painful.
So what about when you're cold and she's warm? Does that ever happen?
Not typically.
No, sometimes that happens.
You're right. Yeah, I'll come to bed. She'll be laying in bed already, and she's warm. And I'll come to bed and I'm cold, and I snuggle into her. And she's like, "Get away from me!
Yeah,
You're cold."
exactly.
Yeah, it's double standard, man, that we have to live with. It's just something that we signed up for. I think we all understand that double standard, but it is what it is.
It's all the same too. It's like she does it all the time. Then
Yeah.
my hands or feet are cold or whatever,
Yeah.
and I just like start to move towards her. She's like, "Don't stop, get away from me." I'm like, what if the roles were reversed here? She's like, "Well, you're the man. You have to keep me warm."
I've heard that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
But in fairness, like them touching us, like we're a bit more hairy too, so we are able to warm them up, right?
That's true.
We probably should be okay with it because they do have to touch us. Like they have to put up with our.
They do.
You know,
Like
we're just not as attractive.
We're not, and we've talked about this. Like, I think I don't know if you've asked Louise this, but I've asked Kristen, like, why are you attracted to me? Like, I'm kind of hairy, and you know, I'm a guy, so you know, I smell different than you, a lot worse, to be honest. And I'm like, why are women attracted to men? And she's like, don't open up that can of worms. And I'm like, okay, we'll just leave it at that then.
She would say that.
I'm like, you're sticking your legs on my, or your feet on my hairy legs, and I wouldn't want to do that. Like, but I guess that's love.
I mean, sometimes it's love. Remember that movie Along Came Polly?
Oh, I love that movie.
I don't really, honestly, I don't really remember what it's about.
Yeah,
but I do remember that one scene.
Oh man, are you talking about the basketball scene?
Yeah, the basketball scene, exactly.
So if you've never seen the movie, I would recommend you watch it. I mean, there's some parts, of course, that are a little risque, so we just want to cover our butts in that. But overall, it's a funny movie. And but what happens is Ben Stiller, the main character, he's playing basketball 2-on-2, and the guys he's playing against, they go shirts off, tarps off. Hey,
Tarps.
tarps, you know all
I
about
should
that.
get there, eh?
But this guy that he's playing against takes his shirt off, and he's a hairy kind of fat guy. And so Ben Stiller, like this guy, he's guarding him in the post, so he has his arm on his back, and it's nasty. He doesn't want to touch him. And the guy turns abruptly and takes a shot, and Ben's like kind of leaning over, so his face is lower. It's like belly button height. So this guy shoots the ball. He goes up, and his face slides up this guy's body and back down as he comes back down. And they do this in slow motion. This hairy, sweaty man, his face pressed up against his body, and then he just shakes the sweat off. It's a hilarious moment, but nasty. And you just like, oh, you're like, man, as men, yeah, we're kind of nasty. I don't know if we're that nasty, some of us, but well, and that's what our wives have to deal with.
They have to deal with that. I know exactly. It's like when I touch Louise, I notice the difference between her and I. Like I'll kind of move my hand, like if I'm, got my hand on her back or whatever, I'll move it around. Whereas for her, she mostly just keeps it still in one spot.
Yep.
So she'll you will be snuggling or whatever. She has her hand on my arm. I'm like, I like it when you move it around too. And she'll move it around for like 4 seconds and then kind of like give me a double tap and like, okay, I'm done. And then, and then just keep it in one spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I can't really blame you. I guess there's parts of me that not really as attractive. So
well, that's a big difference. It's, but I guess God has hardwired us to obviously be attracted to the opposite sex. So while we don't understand it, because I mean, we play sports, play hockey, we're in locker rooms sometimes with guys, and it's like, yeah, it's not a scene that I want to be stuck in, for an extended period of time. I want to get out of there, do my business and shower and get out of there. And we just understand, yeah, guys are guys. And yeah, wouldn't say we're overly attractive, but
well, actually, this is biblical. This is biblical stuff. You think this is all jokes in this episode. No, this is deep theological stuff.
Yeah.
Because did you know in the Old Testament, I'm pretty sure I have my numbers right, but in the Old Testament, it refers to women as being beautiful 26 times. Yep. How many times do you think, Brad, this is put you in a test? How many times do you think it talks about men being attractive?
Well, not a lot. I know that certain guys are described as being tall in stature and handsome, like Saul was, David was. I think those guys were. Is there anybody else?
Okay, Joseph was, yeah.
Joseph was, yeah, you're right.
And those might be the three. It's three.
That might be it.
I'm pretty sure it's three.
Yeah.
So 26 times women are described as beautiful. Men only 3 times. So what does that tell you? That means that women are 8.6777 more times beautiful than we are. Yeah. And it makes sense. What a blessing for us. Blessing to be a man. We have to have to just put up with their beauty.
And there's our tip, men. If you're listening, Valentine's Day, don't just do it on Valentine's Day. Throughout the year, we got to tell our wives how beautiful they are. And I know that we're mentioning how in scripture it mentions that women are described as beautiful a lot. But in our culture and day and age, they go through a lot of competition. They're on average, I mean, we're going from funny to kind of heavy here, but women on average have 13 negative thoughts about their body every day. That's the average. So we have to do a good job every day of telling our wives how beautiful they are. And even if we think it, even if we know it, we still have to say it because they don't know it. They're not hearing it all the time. And in fact, even if we say it every day, they're hearing another message from the world and then the culture. So we got to be overwhelmingly communicative in this area. We got to be telling them how beautiful they are. And so there's your assignment is to start that. Move slow. I'm not saying that you do it all in one massive big dump on Valentine's Day, but what I mean is every day try to find a moment where you can tell her how beautiful she is.
Yeah, exactly. There's this comedian. This is probably not a good story to tell in response to that, but here I am. So, comedian, pastor, marriage guy, Mark Gungor.
Mark Gungor. Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, we went to a marriage thing with him a weekend, probably 7 years ago, I'd say. But it's just I like his stuff. They're really good lessons. He simplifies things a lot for marriage. Like he has a book called The Beatitudes, which is a play on words with the Beatitude. Is like be this attitude, and it's like be nice. If you want to have a nice marriage, be nice to each other, be kind, be patient, and it's pretty cool. But anyways, he talks about like people say the key to being married is being honest. You have to be 100% honest all the time. And so he tells a story. He's like, that's not right. That's whatever. That's a myth. He's like, sometimes I wake up in the morning, my wife's there. She looks haggard. Like she's
You
not
said
looking her
haggard?
best. I
Oh
don't know.
man.
He's like, her hair is a mess. Like she hasn't showered. She's
Yeah.
kind of stinky. I'm like, honey, you look beautiful today. It's just this funny story. The way he tells it
Yeah.
is so funny. But there's this joke. Have you ever heard this? Guy or a woman, she's insecure and looks in the mirror, and her body has changed in whatever way, and she's like, honey, I don't feel good about my body. Can you give me a compliment? And he's like, honey, your eyes are bang on, 2020. And that's not the kind of compliment you want to give. You have perfect eyesight, honey.
Yeah.
So
you're 2020.
Exactly. So those kinds of things, it's like you don't always have to be totally honest. What I'm saying is I hope that you do obviously feel that attraction to your wife, but no matter what, they just want to be told they're beautiful.
Yes.
And I really believe you can see beauty in people. Bodies change, there's more and more wrinkles, all that stuff.
Stretch marks from pregnancy.
Stretch marks, all that.
Yeah.
And there's so much insecurity. And there's guys that I've talked to, and some in Pure Freedom and some in not, but they've compared their wives and their bodies and their, the way that they kiss and all of that to other women, to porn stars, to women that they've had affairs with. Like, hey, honey, why don't you like this? Every woman that I've ever been with likes this. Like crazy stuff that just gets normalized when we're watching porn. And we got to realize the body of our wife that God gave us, that's the one that he wants us to adore.
That's right.
The face, that's the one that he wants us to adore. And so you can pray and ask God, if you're struggling with it, hey, can you help me to be attracted here? But no matter what, man, speak gold into that girl, because she needs to hear it. And you might be in a marriage where it's like, well, she never compliments me and she just criticizes me. It's our opportunity to love when we're not getting loved back. And that's just a reality. And I really think that that's one of the keys in that is knowing that God is our first love, and we do things to honor God. And it talks about that with work, is that you don't just work to serve your master, you work for your master to glorify God, and because you're serving God. And so it's same in marriage. Compliment her all the time.
That's right.
I remember hearing the story of a dad. He's walking in a mall with his 4-year-old daughter, and she's like, "Daddy, am I beautiful?" Because somebody looked at her weird, and she just took it as like, "Oh, I must not be beautiful." And she was 4, and he was like, "Oh my goodness, this starts early with girls, and it's just ingrained into them, and it's not a bad thing. It's just how God made them."
It is. So I heard it put this way: our wives are our standard bearer of what is beautiful. They are the standard, and that is what we have to get to. Because you might be hearing that as like, well, I'm comparing her to all these other women. I don't see what you're talking about. This is the way God designed it. So your bride, your wife, she is the one that needs to be the standard bearer of beauty. So as she changes, that standard changes as well. And that becomes the thing that's most beautiful to you. And that takes some prayer into, that takes some work of God in our life as well too, because we're in a very comparative society and we do this, right? Can you imagine how much more she does that to her? I mean, as she's getting older and aging and comparing herself to magazine covers, social media, all these other things, it's harmful. So can we be a safe place for her? Can we be a safe place and we're affirming her and showing her how much we love her by just speaking into that. But not only that, but we reveal that in just our actions and behavior towards her. We're not looking at other women or comparing her to other women. And even in our humor, like guys, I know like Matt and I, we joke around with each other. And there's a certain way guys, we joke around with each other, right? We'll chirp each other about certain things. You can't joke with your wife that way. Especially specifically about looks and stuff. Be very careful about how you joke around with her about her looks. If it's not, you might think it's good natured and good fun and it's something you do with your buddies, but she's not your buddy in the sense of your guy buddies. She's not. And so you have to be just aware of that. And so change the way that we're talking to our wives. And that's important for us to understand is men and women were different in the way that we joke around with each other. I mean, we got to be careful there because we can cause a lot of harm and a lot of hurt in how we joke around. And I've seen this with guys. We tend to do this. And ladies too. One thing, if you're listening as well, same thing for us as men, not so much with their looks, but more in our identity and our integrity and our character. It really means a lot to us when, as wives, you appreciate us and who we are as men, and you speak that out. I don't know about you, Matt, but when Kristen, I don't want to say the word praises me, but upholds me, uplifts me in front of my family or her family or friends, I feel great. Like that's such a gift. When she's proud of me and expresses that about, the skills that God has given me or what I've done and my integrity, who I am as a man, all those different things, man, that just gives me wings. And so ladies, if you're listening, it's the same thing. And so be careful in how you joke around in those areas too, because just how if we're joking around about your beauty and whatever else, and that hits to your core, same in this area. If you're kind of, and it's vice versa. We don't want to tear each other down. Let's build each other up, and Valentine's Day is a great time to build each other up. No matter where you're at, whatever season you're at, maybe you're in a little bit of a cold, maybe you're in a warm, maybe you're in a hot season, a good season. What's one way you can build your spouse up this Valentine's? It might be something very simple because you haven't done anything in a while. It could be simply a compliment. It could be eye contact. It could be a loving touch. Maybe it's saying something that you appreciate about them that they don't know yet. You just haven't told them how much you appreciate how they are with the kids, or how much you appreciate their cooking, or how much you appreciate how good they are at what they do, or their beauty. Like if you're a guy to wives or women, yeah, we like to hear we're handsome too. We do. So just what are some things you can do and make a movement towards each other this Valentine's Day? Good thought, right? Like, and I'm going to be thinking that too. I know, Matt, you will be, because sometimes we think with Valentine's Day, these big grand gestures because we haven't done much throughout the year, or not even that, just there's so much pressure put on this day, right? Like society does it, right? Like you got to do the big bouquet of flowers. You got to do the beautiful worded card that says just these beautiful poetic words. You got to go out to the fanciest restaurant in town that you had to book 6 months before. All these different expectations that are put on this day. Maybe sometimes small movements are good too. But one tip I want to give you as well, because there's some funny stuff here that happened to us, but talk about your expectations with Valentine's Day, because you don't know what the other's thinking. You don't know what they're expecting, right?
You thought you were doing a good job stewarding your money, getting her flowers, didn't you, Braden?
I did. I mean, one time I bought Kristen flowers, and I don't know if you guys have watched the show The Office, but there's this one episode where I think Andy, he's a character, he's dating Angela at this point. He gives her a little rose. She's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. Anyways, that's Kristen. Like she appreciates the gesture, but flowers are not her thing. Like she's like, I gave her the flowers this one time. I thought I was doing an amazing thing. And she feigned surprise and all this different stuff. I mean, she's really kind to me in this, but we had a conversation later and she's like, chocolate. No bueno on the flowers, chocolate. Okay. So now I know she wants chocolate. That's her expectation. She doesn't want flowers. In fact, she's like, you just put a responsibility on my shoulders. These things are going to die in a week. This makes her sound so like, she just doesn't like, she likes plants, does not like roses because they're going to die right away. And then she's like, well, I got to dry them and I don't know what I'm doing with them. Plants she likes, but flowers, no. And I love the clarity. I like to know expectations. So I'm appreciative that she told me she wants chocolate. If I give her flowers, I'm not meeting her expectation.
Yeah. So there's one time, I think it was probably a birthday or something, but I bought Louise flowers and I thought I was doing a good thing. And then, cause she loves flowers,
Yeah.
not like Kristen, but
Yeah.
loves them. And then her mom came over later and also brought her flowers. But her flowers are way better than my flowers. And Louise, she took the two together. She's like, so honey, look at what my mom bought me. These are so beautiful, aren't they? Mine, when I got them in, she's like, oh, thanks for the flowers, honey. Then her mom brings them. These are so beautiful, honey. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. So even with flowers, I'm like, okay, now I need to know which flowers to get her. In fact, even sitting here right now, I'm like, I think she likes one, or there's like a couple that she's liked, but now I have to go look in a couple. We're filming a couple days before Valentine's Day, but
Yeah.
I have to look and go like, oh, wow, which one is
Yeah.
she gonna like?
Don't do the Walmart special, right? When guys are rushing on Valentine's or the eve before Valentine's Day, trying to grab whatever's left in Walmart, right?
I know exactly what you're talking
I've
about.
been there, buddy. Yeah. You see all these frantic husbands stressed to the max, trying to grab the last rose that's there or last whatever plant is there.
Exactly. I get the wilted yellow flower.
That's right.
It's just falling over.
Yeah, that's
She's
right.
got too many of those.
Yeah.
I also think cards, like buying cards from a store, I think it's such a waste of money. It's like you read like what, $7, $10 for these
Yeah.
cards. You write in them, oh, thanks for the note, and you throw the card out,
Uh-huh.
or like store it away in a box, like as if you're gonna read it 10 years from now. So I just think they're wasting money. So I told Louise that I'm like, I don't want us to buy cards anymore, and she wasn't happy. And it just came out like, I really love those cards. I love knowing that you've gone to the store and picked out a card for me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it for you, but I don't want us to do it for anybody else. Like, don't do it for me. It would actually mean more to me if you just took a piece of paper and folded it and made a card, homemade card. That would mean more to me, because that's my desire, is
Yeah.
like, don't waste your money on a card.
Oh, you and me are so similar, buddy.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's always like, oh man, I'm what, eight Valentines in, I think,
Yeah.
and I'm still sitting here going, oh shoot, I forget which bouquet
It's good we're
that
doing
she
this
likes,
episode because we can think about it together.
yeah, exactly. But know what they want, right? And I need to preach to myself too. Is like, what do they want? I have learned about cards. I've learned to get flowers. I used to not even get flowers. I used to get the like some smaller ones. I know she wants bigger ones. I know certain colors she doesn't like, so I'm just now thinking, oh shoot, which ones does she like? This typical guy, but yeah, no, it's funny. Sexual touch, non-sexual touch, same thing. Hey, it's
Yeah.
like, what do they like? What
Yeah.
do they not like?
That's right. What do they
it's-
respond to? And I think we don't ask those questions, and that's where the humor in this happens. But it causes very real friction if we don't know,
Yeah,
because we assume, we make assumptions, and so sometimes it's good to have a question. Just ask.
yeah,
And maybe that's something you do this Valentine's Day, is like, hey, what are 5 things I do that you love? What are 5 things I do that you find sexy? Different things like that, because we don't know. Like, honestly, we don't. We just assume, and we assume based on what we would like, and we're different. We're not the same, and that's what makes marriage so enticing and exciting and frustrating at times, because we're so different. So if you want to bridge that gap of difference, you're going to have to talk. And so this Valentine's Day, I mean, that's the start, because you don't know. You're honestly just throwing darts at a board. You don't know what's going to hit.
yeah,
And so that's why I'd say, like, we just recommend, let's have a conversation. And don't let Valentine's Day be the only time that you do this. We just use this date right now as an excuse to talk about this, but this should be something we do throughout the life of our marriage. Is really lean into what the other loves. Learn those things and do them. Be considerate of each other's needs. Look to meet their needs. That's what love is. And that's the thing about Valentine's Day. Love is not so much about how I'm feeling. And this is a Christian perspective, a biblical perspective. It's really about how I can make my spouse feel, how I can pour into their needs and serve their needs above my own. It doesn't mean that we don't share about what we would like, but at the same time, let's move the focus off of myself, because that's what romance in the world really is all about, is me, 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 right? What do I get out about this? How am I made happy in this? How are you meeting my needs on this Valentine's Day? All these different things that create a focus of selfishness when it comes to love. Love is selfless. So move that way this Valentine's Day.
Do you remember that video that you guys used to play, or maybe still do in your
Mm.
inventory with Family Life? That comedian, that female comedian,
Oh,
about sexual
sexual
touch.
touch.
Do you remember that
Yeah.
one?
Yes, I do.
Remember who that was?
Oh man,
Don't
put me
remember?
on the spot.
It's okay. It was
I don't know. I can't remember.
such a funny
Yeah.
video, though. It's such a funny clip.
Yeah.
Who did she start with? She starts with what women like?
Yeah. So women, what she's saying is, women have sensory receptors all over their body, and men primarily have sensory receptors in one area.
So she goes over the whole body, basically,
Yeah.
right? She's like, men think that women respond the same way. So
Yeah.
then with her hand, she reaches out like
Yeah.
where boobs and then mid
Yeah.
where the crotch
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and touches. She's like, men think that this is going to turn a woman on. It's
No.
not.
No.
The women need you to touch every other part of their body,
Yes.
not those. Those are like off limits. You touch
Yes.
every other part of their body until they like
Uh-huh.
grab your hands, like, okay, I'm ready, let's go.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it finishes by her going, men, they got sensory receptors in one spot. And
Yeah.
then she reaches out like to the crotch.
Yeah.
That's the one spot.
Yeah.
And it's just so different. I've had to keep that in my mind so many times. Like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I gotta like really breathe, practice self-control. Okay.
Oh, 100%.
Die to myself here.
Mhm.
her body, what 1 Corinthians 7 talks about. I have authority over her body, she has authority over mine, and I have to just serve her with that and not just take
Yeah.
care of mine. And even coming out of the out of sexual talk, it's like, hey, I'll compliment her, just a little joke, but like, hey, my body's looking good today, honey,
Yeah.
because it's just you're. I'm talking about her body,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
my
Totally.
body,
I
but
know,
like,
I know what you
hey,
meant.
babe, my body's looking good today.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm one with
Yeah.
her, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can have
I
some fun
love
with it.
that.
But that
Yeah.
whole mentality is it's something to get
It
ingrained
is.
into us.
It is. And one thing too, I mean, this is great because it helps us understand something as men too. Like, so on average for guys, it takes about 2 minutes to climax. For women, it's 17
Yeah.
when it comes to sex. So think about that. Guys, it doesn't take us long.
Yep.
And I know you're thinking I can beat that. It's not a race, buddy. You're listening.
Well, I beat it.
Yeah.
I'm like a minute and a half quicker than that.
Yeah.
I beat it.
You beat it. What I'm saying though is that our wives take longer. So that means the brunt of our time and our focus needs to be on them. For us, it's a stiff breeze. It doesn't take much for us, right? For them, though, it takes a lot more. So let's invest the time and attention on them the way that they need. And it's enjoyable, like to be able to do that. Like flip the script off. Honestly, we just think, oh, what I need out of this, what I feel out of this. But let's make her feel good. And I'm learning to do that more and more. Is just invest that time into her, and it's going to just increase your satisfaction, mutual satisfaction in sex. Because if guys, like, we're often just focused, we get heated of the moment, and we just go to us. I don't know if we see red, we don't know what's going on, but try to be present in that moment and invest in her needs. And you're going to find such enjoyment in that. And so that's my tip for you this Valentine's Day. And I'm learning with you. I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So as just to kind of wrap up, I want to share a couple of things. I want you guys to welcome the Lord into Valentine's too. And he, number one, he wants to love you and have that love relationship be primary in your life and receive the love of the Lord. Psalm 143 verse 8 is one of my favorites, and just talks about, let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love. And you can just receive that and like focus on God's love for you. And then reciprocate that and love him, and talk to the Lord about how you love him, and praise him in song and word. But I also want to also want to encourage you to bring the Lord into your marriage or your relationship. I'm so bad with gifts. It's funny. The love language you were bringing up earlier,
Yeah.
like typically they say there's like two, right? Like a primary one and
Yeah,
secondary
that's right.
one.
Yeah.
I've asked Louise countless times, even a few days ago, like, hey, what are your top two? She's like, I like them all. I like them all.
That's what Kristen said. I'm all of them. Like, oh,
it's so hard. Like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
shoot. And I'm like, I couldn't care less about gifts.
Yeah.
Like gifts, there's a few, like if they're funny or something, then that'd be great. As an aside, Braden, Walter just got me a shirt that says I am Louise's husband. Oh, and I showed you that,
Yeah, I
right?
love
Yeah.
that. That's great.
Oh,
You
it's
should wear
so
that next
funny.
time.
I should
Yeah.
wear that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But if you don't know about that story, you should go back to the episode with Walter, which was probably a month or two ago, with Walter Perez, and you can hear that story about me being Louise's husband. Those kinds of gifts I think are really funny. If it's like something that's extra special, I guess. Typically, if it's just a gift for a gift, I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me. It's kind of nice, I guess. But Louise loves gifts, loves them. So I'm like at a loss one of these days. I've just got my last minute wilted flower in the van, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna get her now? So I literally I prayed. I'm like, God, I don't know what to do. And as I prayed, I saw this little, in my mind's eye, I saw this little like ceramic flower, like a bowl that you'd put flowers in, but it wasn't just a bowl. It had like the hands of God on one side of the bowl. Instead of it being smooth, it was like fingers and interlocked. And so it was kind of like him, or not interlocked, I guess, but like his hands together, kind of like if you can picture like his hands hold the whole world, and there's that visual for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just saw that in my mind's eye as I prayed. And so I went out driving. I pulled up to this strip mall that I'd never been to before. And I just was like, maybe there's some store here I could go into. And I walked into this store. First store that I went into, it was a flower shop, and I saw this bowl, exactly the thing that I saw in my mind's eye. And I was like, this is crazy. And so that was years ago, and we still have it. And Louise loved it, and she still loves it. And I don't always ask, or I don't always like see things that clearly or hear from the Lord that clearly. But that was a cool thing that God did for me, to help me that day, to remind me in the future, and to remind me even now, like, hey, bring me into this. I can help you love your wife in the way that she will feel loved. I don't often know what to do, but God helps me in those ways. And even for me, I should call on him more for sure. But I want to encourage you with that. So if you want a resource, I want to encourage you guys. Marriage Undefiled is a resource that we have. You take advantage of it. It's like $197 US, which US, Canadian, whatever different currency you're in. It's like less than 2 counseling sessions, and it's so worth it. It'll bring up conversation in your marriage that I promise you've never had before, and it'll just give you different perspectives. And people that have gone through it, that like literally from the first session, they're like, this is different. Our communication is different. The way that we have grace for each other is different. And so you can find it in the show notes or at restoredministries.ca/marriage undefiled. And I just encourage you to invest in your marriage and spend time. And it's going to be, there's 8 videos in there. It's going to be 8 times investing in your marriage and bringing up really healthy and intimate conversations so you can know each other better and prosper in your marriage. So happy Valentine's Day. God bless. And we'll chat next week.
And don't forget tarps. Let's make it a thing. See you guys next week.